Why, hello there, and welcome to Can TV 21 Hotline. Let's talk etiquette. It's just so wonderful to be here with you again, and I invite you to call with your questions. Please give me a call with your questions. Questions. I'm here to answer your questions. Please call me at 312-738-1060. The grandest subject on planet Earth is etiquette. Manners and morals drive the social relations between all of us. And etiquette is as important in America as it is in Africa, as it is in Asia. It's a global phenomenon. Manners and morals. And this is what our children should be taught, because that is the foundation of our humanity. I can't say it any better than that. But we're going to continue with our subject from last week, because I think I'm on to something. And I want to share my thoughts on this grand subject with you, because I'm old enough to have a history that goes back far enough to know the difference from what I experienced. And yes, we were taught etiquette in school. In the South, we were taught that. And it was such an enriching discipline and value system that made so much sense to me when I was taught that in the home, in the church, and in school. Because my parents and my community wanted the best behavior possible from me. And trust was a part of it. And this is where morals come in, because being trustworthy is a key to your position in the community, your relationships in that community. And this is why we didn't lock our doors. We didn't have bars on our windows. We didn't walk around in fear. I slept on our back porch right here in Chicago many nights, in the summertime, of course. So this is a key part of our reality that is not being taught any longer. And I think last week I told you that I had this idea, and I wanted to share it with you just to let you know that everything is history. If you don't have a historical context to what you're talking about, it's very, very difficult for you to appreciate it. But history is another subject that's under assault, that's not really being taught. So our children are coming up in a reality that's totally in their lifetime, without much understanding of the history of how they got to be where they're at, and what went into creating the world that they were born into. So that's another subject for another show, and we're going to talk about that in relationship to etiquette. But I want to go back to the subject that we didn't talk entirely about on our last show, because I had a subject that rolled over into last week's show. So what is the subject today? Let me put it up here so that you can see exactly what we were talking about from last week. The anti-etiquette corporate movement, diminishing the meaning of the word and its behavioral values from the consciousness of the American people. Now let me give you some historical context to that statement, a reason I think it's so valid. When I was a child, of course we were taught this in the home, we were taught it at the church, and we were taught it in the school, right? And the reason for that is because naturally they wanted us to be the best citizens as adults as it could be from an educational standpoint. But unfortunately, there was a process that we went through, and my generation was on the very end of that process in terms of this great industrial society that we had created, starting back at the end of the Depression. This is the late 1930s and after World War II. Okay? So it was a boom in America. We manufactured everything. Shoelaces, socks, shoes, ties, suits, cars, everything imaginable. We manufactured those things. And we were doing so well, creating such great things for everybody's needs. So it was a society made up of people who worked together to create all of the benefits of being able to work together as a society. And so whatever our needs were, we were able to produce those things right here in America. And it was a glorious times. My parents, my grandparents, it was so rich, the culture. I mean, the men's dressed up and everybody had new cars, and that was a great life. And you talk to your grandparents, the ones that may be still with you, or your great-grandparents, and they will attest to this. So the whole idea is to create the kind of harmony within the society that will allow us to be at peace and the American dream could be realized. And so what happened, unfortunately, there was the Nixon detente with China. And you go and you study your history. We decided as a country that we were going to forgive our communist brothers and begin to build relationships with them. And so President Nixon went to China. And out of that, we began to deindustrialize. All of the factories closed. All of the things we once did so well with our hands and with our minds was at the top of the economic industrial pyramid in the world. We set the standards for all the things everybody else admired in America. And so, regrettably, we began to sell our factories and move them out to what they call offshore. Oh, I see I have a caller. Caller, you have a question?
I certainly do. Well, hi, Mr. Etiquette.
Hello there, Madam Etiquette. How are you? You have a question?
You look so good this evening. Yes, I do. I got a question. I don't like that word, anti-etiquette.
Okay.
You get you a magic marker and put the word pro in front of it. Would you do that, Mr. Etiquette?
I will, but if you allow me to finish my presentation, you will see how that word is connected.
Yes. It's not. It's
what
not
I'm saying.
Right. It's not so hard to be polite to people.
No, I'm not arguing against etiquette. This is what we do. We're an etiquette show. So we are actually promoting etiquette.
Right.
So just give me a moment, hear me out, and if you disagree, call me back. Okay?
Okay, I sure will.
Do that. All right. So part of this process of deindustrializing naturally was done for the profits of the few. And this is why we have billionaires today, and they own, 10 people own half of the wealth of the world? Okay, this is a 50-year process. So corporations who now own the TVs and radios and all the other sources of communication decided to work against this thing called manners and morals. And in doing so, it created jobs in this degenerate sector of our economy. Yes, it meant that we would have to lower our standards in order to accept these new enterprises that were on the curb up. But you had to take the people and desensitize them so they won't be so, oh my God, pornography, that's just so shameful and anti-Christian and all the other things, immoral. For someone to be asking my daughter to take off her clothes and strip nude, that's just too shameful. But they were able to pull that one off, as you well know, and we now have strip clubs all over the country, right? And we don't seem to have a great problem with it, because now our ability to be indifferent to that and to work against that as a community and protest it, we are so down to anything goes in this society, that we have learned to accept it. There was a time when gambling was not really appropriate and acceptable, maybe in Vegas, but now everybody's into gambling. Slot machines, the state is into gambling. I mean, it's gambling going on everywhere. So how do you turn a people into the desire to accept this kind of industry? And the only way that can really be done is that the morals have to be lowered. So manners and morals have to be lowered. And where's all the other money is being generated? You want to include crime? Crime is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So how do you get people to start committing crimes? You used to give them drugs. All of these things here contribute to lowering the standards in this society. And so what word did they have to remove from the consciousness of us? That word is etiquette. That's the word that I'm saying, and this is just my opinion, I am saying there's a deliberate effort over the last 50 years to lower the standards in our society so these other enterprises could take hold and become acceptable. That's just my opinion. So it's an anti-etiquette corporate campaign to lower the standards of the American people. And what has come of it? All kind of dissension, all kind of discord, we're just fighting each other every day. You see it on the TV. It's the politicians fighting the politicians. It's the business fighting the business. It's the corruption that's going on all over. I mean, it's everywhere. And because we have given up this one value system that is so, so important to the health and well-being of our society. So that's essentially my argument as to why we are in the condition that we're in today. That's why. It's been a deliberate effort to do just that. And as a consequence, I give you an example. In the 90s, we were happily accepted in many schools. There was a time I didn't have the trained etiquette instructors to accept the contracts. That's how popular it was into the 90s and the late 90s and into the 2000s. We were very well welcomed. And that went on for about 8, 9, 10 years. But slowly those contracts came to an end. Slowly. And so somewhere along the way they said, well, we really don't need this kind of teaching and this kind of education in our schools anymore. But they didn't have an answer for how do you replace it. And they didn't want to replace it. The schools are producing exactly what the corporations want to produce. That's who they're serving. And they're producing young people, children, who have not a clue on how to conduct themselves in society. What are their personal responsibilities to themselves and to their fellow neighbor? If they understood that, you wouldn't have the strife that you have today. You wouldn't have the shootings that you have today. But because it's billions of dollars being made on crime. And it's going on right before us. So we are feeding on ourselves as a society. We're deteriorating from the inside. And it's right before you, and you can easily see it. So I'm saying to you, my listeners out here, we need to reverse this situation, this condition. We need to insist that our schools and our district bring back manners and moral teaching. And if you do that, we can reverse this trend downward. And that's exactly where we're going. Downward, downward, downward as a society. And you can see how the TV has brainwashed our young men. How can you convince a young man to pull his pants down and not wear a belt and wear clothes all tattered? How do you convince our young men the only profession for them is basketball or football? You dress them in basketball clothes most of their life. Our parents now are buying sneakers, Jordan sneakers for their 2-year-old, and dress them in basketball clothes most of their lives. So what else are they to aspire to become but a basketball player? So we're moving millions of young, talented young men off of the grand stage where there are millions of opportunities, just literally millions of opportunities out here to make a great living, to make a tremendous contribution, but their time is being spent watching basketball on TV. And there's not a dime they will ever see from that game. So it's such a misdirection of a child that this child will not really have a full understanding of their opportunities. This is why etiquette is such an important discipline. Because if he has those skills or she have those skills, the chances are much, much greater for them to merge into any other profession that they so set their minds to. This is just how important etiquette is. And it's up to you parents, you relatives, you uncles, you aunts, you grandparents. It's up to you to insist that this is taught to your grandchild. Even if you have to do it, then do it. Because that's how critical it is. A child growing up with no morality, no morals, or no moral compass is a child destined to fail. You know that. If he's corruptible, he's going to be corrupted. And what are the consequences of that? He's going to steal from you. He's going to rob somebody else. He's going to lie to get a few dollars more because he has no integrity. Is that what you want in your grandchild? To be that kind of person? And you can do something about it. It's in our ability to start teaching this most critical of subjects. And we call it etiquette. And defining etiquette is broken into 2 sections. The manners that they will need to be able to navigate in society, irregardless of what environment they find themselves in. And then the moral part of it is they would be upstanding citizens. And they would have a moral compass to know what is right and what is wrong. And not to engage in any wrong behavior. Because then you lose your soul to whomever you have given it to for whatever little benefit that your child or you will get by lying, by cheating. Oh, okay, you can cover this up and you can steal over here or steal from your company. You can do that, but the price you pay is blackmail. Because I know you're a thief. And unless you do as I tell you to do, then you may go to prison. That's exactly how it's being played in this society. This is why you have so much corporate corruption. And the only thing that happens to them, they get a slap on the back of the wrist. But you and I down on that other side of that justice ladder. You know, you got 2 sets of justice. You got the justice for the haves and the justice for the have-nots. The justice that I'm going to be confronted with is going to prison or paying a tremendous fine or being blackballed from my industry because I made a tremendous mistake. And so, parents out there listening to me, grandparents, mentors, everyone can do something about it. It's not like you are helpless. You're not helpless. And etiquette is right at the tip of your fingers. It's that close to you. You can go online, order you an etiquette book, for a few dollars, probably less than $10. You can have a book that has so much knowledge and understanding how this society is supposed to function. And one help another, and you spread the word, and someone else gets on board. And we don't need the advertisers, the corporate advertisers, to tell us that we need this kind of education. It is pretty clear that we need some kind of education at the way we're going and at the rate we're going there. We need some kind of help or assistance. We need some kind of understanding. We do. And you see it right in your own family. People have some words. They misunderstand each other. And what happens? They're not talking anymore. They don't. Some families just own nothing practically. They separate and never talk to a cousin or an uncle because of some misunderstanding that they weren't able to correct. And this hurts everybody. This is why etiquette is such an essential in terms of your conduct, in terms of my conduct, because it's a way to resolve issues of conflict. It's really conflict resolution. If you want to look at it in a very fundamental way, it's conflict resolution. This is what etiquette represents. And so we place emphasis on manners and morals. And if you teach a child those two things, they're going to do right and do it in the right way. And it's going to benefit not only them in terms of employment and income, it's going to benefit them in terms of being a parent. It's going to benefit them in terms of being a husband or a wife. It's going to benefit them in being able to raise their own children with these values. And once you have it in your head that you're not going to do that, you're not going to let your friend talk you into doing that because you know better. And this is what we teach at the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois. And we want you to join us. We need every living soul out here. And so what I'm going to do is put our information up so you can reach out to us and join this campaign to become pro-etiquette and not anti-etiquette. You see, if they don't tell you on TV to become pro-etiquette, you don't think it's important, right? So you want to listen to what they teach you on TV, right? So if they don't say etiquette, I'm not listening because I listen to what they tell me in the commercials on TV, right? Well, if you do that, this is how we got in the condition we're in. And it was a long process, and it was slowly, but it was there. And if you have the history, you will know that what I'm saying, after watching it evolve over a 50-year period, I'm a living witness to it. So reach out to the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois. Let's talk etiquette at 312-473-2942. And there's our email and website. Email info@efoi.org. Send me a note. Send me something. That way we can connect with one another and make some great things happen before it's too late. Well, I think I'm getting a signal. I may be right close to my sign-off time. Am I close to signing off? Have a few more minutes? Okay, all right. Next week, we're going to move into another area that is not as turbulent. I'm going to bring a set of utensils and give a lesson in fine dining. Oh, what a rich experience for you. Knowing what fork to use, knowing the spoons, knowing what plates, knowing how to read the table. So when you're at that 5-star restaurant, you'll be able to navigate just like you've been doing this all your life. And this is how they do it. I mean, they separate that. They don't teach that anymore. The children went to prom recently. They're doing buffet at a formal. How do you do that? Anyway, we have a caller. One last caller calling you. What's your question?
Yep, I listened to every word you said.
Madam Etiquette.
Yes, now I understand what your etiquette stands for, and you are 150% with the morals. Absolutely. With the gambling, with the prostitution, and that's been around since the early ages. I have a suggestion now.
Yes.
Some of these gambling people, we have Gambling is Anonymous. So if they want to get themselves fixed up to get back to help their children, they do have anonymous places that they can call.
Right.
But as far as the gambling and all that goes, that's going to be on them to stop to pay their rent instead of stopping at the casinos. You are right. And in every restaurant now in Cook County, you have poker machines.
Right.
Now, yes, that builds more revenue for the restaurant or the establishment. So what are you going to do about that? But, you know, Las Vegas is the only place to go have a good time, come home, get back to your business, have a good time, and take care of your children. But now I know what your etiquette stands for.
You're so right. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you for calling back and letting me know that we're in agreement.
I'll call you next week, Mr.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Isn't that wonderful to get that kind of validation? And here, she's right, the slot machines. I mean, now you have to go to Gambling Anonymous. You got a whole industry of counselors to help you stop gambling. So how do you build out an industry where the jobs were taken, doing great work, doing great things, they're no longer here? And how do you create an economy? You create it by degenerate conduct, like gambling. So you're wasting your money that you could be spending on your family and building a great life. You're giving it to the corporations and the slot machines and those people there. It is out. We're going insane. I actually have to say that. We're losing our direction. Who are we? Ask yourself, who are we and what do we stand for? That was a time we stood for great things. But I'll close with that. Thank you so much for tuning us in. And Madam Etiquette, I look forward to your conversation, your questions next week. So have a great weekend and good night.